Welcome aboard. This is the Miles to Go podcast. And now here's your host, Ed Pizza.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Miles to Go podcast. Mr. Kerr and I are going to be covering an interesting report from a friend of the show talking about whether you should use your miles and points for holiday travel. We've got a question from our Slack community, some of the best uses of Hyatt's Category 1 to 4 certificates, and Richard, in what can only be described as another serendipitous moment for you, we're going to be talking about Waffle House again, 2 weeks in a row. Can
Why?
you believe that?
I can't believe it. But it's been coming up a lot and a lot more recently. There are still some friends I have who, let's say, enjoy the nightlife, and I wake up sometimes at about the regular time I do, 7 o'clock every morning.
Yeah.
And last night I woke up to one of these friends sending me a picture of their Waffle House trip at 4 a.m. In Albuquerque, New Mexico, and I was like, "Man, that's so 4 a.m. Albuquerque time. I'm literally like, you literally just sent this to me a minute ago,
Yeah,
because I just woke up.
Yeah,
you are literally still there right now. Like, go to bed. You're old. Go to bed."
Nothing good can precede a 4 a.m. Waffle House visit.
I disagree. Now, maybe not at my current age, but in years past, many great things happened before a 4 a.m. Waffle House trip.
Were I to try to visit a Waffle House at 4 a.m. right now, I believe that it would have deleterious effects on my health by being up at 4 a.m. Nothing to do with the food at the Waffle House, which I'm sure is wholesome and righteous.
I would just be exhausted for the next 2 days. I missed one night's sleep now. I need 2 nights to catch up. It's terrible.
Yeah. It is pretty ugly. And since I have, I've got Orlando again to see you. I've got that mystery trip that you and I are taking. I've got Minneapolis, Vegas, New York, Vegas, and Europe all before Thanksgiving.
Ooh, that sounds gross.
I feel like I'm going to be missing lots of nights of sleep.
I think it is time for a special guest appearance sometime in the next couple of weeks from Mrs. Kerr, as Mrs. Kerr and the kids have been out Yellowstone National Park for the last 5 days.
Yes.
And I posted like 2 pictures of them on their trip, and I have so many people asking so many questions about how they did Yellowstone. I'm like, I don't know. You have to ask her. I didn't do this one. You have to ask her.
Sad. It's a bummer that you weren't able to go with them.
Indeed. But, I had to go to the wedding yesterday. Pretty intense couple of weeks of work. I just could not take off. Plus, I had to be at this wedding. So I said, you know what, homeschool kids and family, you guys go and have a great time. And I can't make everything. But yeah, I'm pretty bummed, man. And I've been in this house alone, quiet for 4 days. I hadn't talked to anybody unless it's been on the pickleball court or unless it's been in a Zoom. I don't like it, man. I have not been in this house very much at all except to like sleep because I don't want to be here in the quiet. It sucks. I don't like it.
Well, unlike you, I am in one of the meccas of travel at the moment. I'm at the Wyndham Orlando Convention Center in Orlando near Disney World, and a friend of ours who lives here, Lauren, who you know, we were talking, and she's like, "So where are you guys staying?" And I said, "The Wyndham Orlando," and she starts to say, "Where is that?" And I said, "On Erlo Bronson," and she goes, "Ooh, Erlo Bronson?" It's sort of where like all the tackiest of tacky souvenir shops are on the backside of Disney, and it's a special place. And let me tell you, we redeemed points, thankfully, to not pay for rooms here. It's pretty much exactly what you'd expect. Our tower has 7 floors, probably the equivalent of somewhere between like 500 and 700 rooms. There is 1 working elevator for all of us. The other 2 do not appear to have made the opening bell. Here for a convention from our Star Cruiser Halcyon days of Disney World. And there are a whole bunch of people that put a whole lot of time and effort into their costumes here, Mr. Kerr. It's a pretty special thing.
Like my trip around downtown Atlanta about a month ago during Dragon Con and seeing everybody, lots of effort. I'm not even being funny. I'm impressed. Which tangent do I want to go on here for just 30? If you'll indulge me. I want to have a good elevator story from last night in Dahlonega, Georgia, which is a city many of you have never heard of before. But I like the coming around of social media that I've seen lately. There's a guy I follow on Twitter who just holds to task people who post videos of making fun of other people in the gym. So like gym influencers that are filming themselves and they purposely catch somebody in the background doing something that they think is worth making fun of.
Yeah.
This influencer just holds them to tasks and says, stop making fun of people in the gym. It's quit filming in the gym. It's not there. You're not there to do anything except get in shape. And you should only be encouraging anybody who shows up to the gym, which I'm like 100% on board with. The same thing when people go to like this thing you're at in Dragon Con, people are standing on the corner taking these videos and posting them, making fun of. Like, just stop. Like, it's amazing. Like, if you are so into Dragon Con or anything that you put that much effort and you've got a community of people around you, what is there to make fun of, man? Like, and I just like it, everything coming around and making fun of the making funners, if that makes a little bit of sense. I just love seeing everything come around.
That is Kurt English, if ever there was Kurt.
Yeah,
English.
I mean, I don't know how it's like I said, I'm not feeling very good this morning, and that's all I got.
Making fun of the making funners. I love it. All right, let's do a little housekeeping. If you want to leave us a voicemail or text the show, 571-293-6659. He is at Kurt Points on all those social media channels. I am at Pizza in Motion. Miles to Go Podcast on TikTok and Instagram to find clips of the show. And if you want to email us, ed at pizzainmotion.com. We'll be talking about our Slack community here in just a little bit. But unfortunately, because of all the crazy scheduling, we were hoping to get all four of the fearsome foursome back with Julian and Summer, since they collaborated on this report that we're going to talk about. Couldn't make the schedules work, but we have some really interesting information. So you've heard us talk about Points Path on the show. We had a special offer for their Founders Club, and they've got more stuff coming down the pike. But they teamed up with the Points Guy to put together this report about holiday travel. And I'll set up the high level. And then I want to hear your opinions on the data, because I don't think the data is terribly surprising. But at least for travel inside the U.S., what PointsPath and TPG found after analyzing the PointsPath data is that, by and large, with one very small exception, you're not going to get great value using your points and miles around the holidays. And that's mostly based on dynamic award charts, and then to some degree, the airlines that may not have gone fully dynamic, dialing things up for the flights that occur during Thanksgiving and Christmas. Across the board, the best value of miles during the holidays is JetBlue, where you can actually get a little over 1% more value than normal. And the worst is American Airlines, where it's 10% worse than normal. I can't say the numbers themselves are a surprise, Mr. Kerr, but I'm curious your thoughts on the data.
Yeah. Let's go into the methodology a little bit. I found this interesting so that you know exactly what you're looking like. So it says TPG utilized data from all searches conducted using the PointsPath browser extension from January 1st, 24 through 2 p.m. Saturday, September 28th. This consists of 7,215,830 individual sets of search results, a cash price, and an award price. So they define the holidays for Thanksgiving as Friday, November 22nd through Sunday, December 1st. Christmas, New Year's, Friday, December 20th through Sunday, January 5th. A one-way or round trip. So 7.2 million searches with PointsPath on those dates. And then they compared, hey, what did this look like before or outside of these dates and during these dates? So nothing terribly surprising. So going through it here, which programs offer the worst mileage redemptions for holiday travel? American Airlines goes from 1.55 cents per mile down to 1.39 cents for Thanksgiving and 1.4 cents for Christmas. Delta, non-holiday, 1.12. Thanksgiving, 1.09. Christmas, no difference, 1.12. Not surprising, largely a revenue-based program.
Right.
United Airlines, 1.39 outside of holidays. That drops to 1.26 during Thanksgiving and 1.36 during Christmas. So that 1.39 to 1.26 is basically a 10% reduction in the value of miles with United. I think there's two parts to this. Number one, not terribly surprising that your miles go a little bit less during the holidays. But I think a great report, you should go and read the TPG article, Summer and Nick Ewan and our buddy Julian putting this stuff together. I think there's one thing missing here. And Julian and Summer are going to be like, what? he's holding. I think you have to look at, there's no correlation to surge pricing, right? There's no, hey, airfare went up this much, mileage went up this much. Like, what is that correlation there? Does airline or does revenue and cash? So told you, man. I'm not using my words this morning.
You and me both.
Do revenue and award pricing go up similarly? So are tickets 10% more expensive? How much of a better deal is it relative to cash price to use your miles? Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, hey, if revenue fares went up 30%, but your miles are only worth 10% less, then it's still, net this much better deal using your miles versus revenue fares over the holidays, which is really what points and miles are about, right? It's how much are you saving relative to outside of the holiday time, I think is the one piece here missing for me. Very interesting data, a great read, but that's kind of like what I'm missing out of this.
Well, I think there's a little bit of that in there if you think about, and only from a relative sense, in that they tell us how much airfare our points and miles can buy us the rest of the year versus how much it can buy during the holidays. And so I think what that's telling us is that generally speaking, the airlines are charging a higher points and miles value for tickets than they are cash fares. The gap closes during the holidays, except as you noted for Delta, which I think there's an interesting piece here when you look across the board. When we looked at the numbers, and I'll draw a couple of parallels here, but we'll link to the report so you can see all the data. But at the high end, you see like Alaska is worth 1.68 cents per mile on average over the course of 2024. And that drops to 1.55 cents per mile when you focus on the holidays. You noted that at Delta, the numbers are pretty much almost exactly the same. And the reason for that is that they're not dialing the program in at certain times a year. They're just saying, to your point, that your points are essentially worth a rebate. And, for them, that rebate on a captured audience is going to be, 1.1 cents. And it's going to be slightly higher the rest of the year. So I think the other thing that the report shows us is that, there is variability, which I think you and I know. But for folks who are thinking that there aren't values anymore out there, I think just by virtue of the fact that you can see prices drop at the holidays, it tells you that to get to these averages, there have to be times where you can exceed the average. And that's where smart people are redeeming their points and miles.
Yeah. There's a premium cabin section in here that's really interesting. Boy, your miles go a whole lot less for premium cabin over holidays. So if you want to fly Alaska Airlines business class or first class, they don't have business class there, Kurt. If you want to fly Alaska Airlines first class home for the holidays to see grandma, you're going to get up to 16% less per mile. Right. And that's not even comparing how many more miles you're going to have to spend in the first place. But now you got to spend that many more miles plus a 16% less value relative to the cash pricing, that's pretty rough.
Yeah. And on the flip side, if you don't want to stay in the U.S. and you want to travel somewhere internationally, you actually can get more value during the holidays. And that's one of those things that I know so many people get together on the holidays. We've done a couple of family travel trips for Thanksgiving, but it was more like going up to a cabin in Deep Creek or something like that. Or once we were stupid enough to go to Disney World for the holiday. So I don't know that we'd be doing this, but if you didn't have a burning desire to share a turkey around your family table, boy, there are some good values if you want to go overseas.
Yeah, the searches that PointsPath captured Thanksgiving week for United from 1.1 up to 1.47 international versus domestic. And then Christmas, 1.16 domestic up to 1.6. So you're looking at 32 and 38% increases in the value of your miles if you want to go somewhere for the holidays and not stay home, which is a great option. I think what I love about PointsPath, and as soon as Julian showed me PointsPath however long ago, this is actually where I see the most values. Finally, somebody doesn't have to stick a finger in the air and go, well, this is our valuation, and it's based on editorial teams sitting around the table, of which I did many times in my editorial life to try and figure out what the value of miles is. This is like, nope, this is 7 million cash prices. This is 7 million award prices. This is actually the real value. And like, this is the data that people have been trying to get for forever. I think it's such an incredible tool going forward of all the different things that PointsPath can do with this data and a lot of people should be very interested in this. As soon as I read this, I had my editorial hat on, and then I put my business hat on, and I was like, ooh, like there's some really good stuff for the day job that I could do with this thing here.
Yeah, and I think it comes as no surprise to anybody that's been paying attention that Alaska comes out on the top of the chart for both of these in terms of the overall value of their miles.
Indeed, no such thing. I did end up transferring 100,000 Amex points to Hawaiian and immediately combining those into my Alaska account to get by and far the largest Alaska balance I've ever had, which I think as of time of recording, at least online transfers from Amex to Hawaiian are now kaput. Is that correct?
I mean, they've been kaput and not kaput off and on for a handful of days, so I assume they're probably gone at this point, but hard to say. What could be kaput by the time this goes live is Tampa, though. If you've been seeing the maps for Hurricane Milton, it's pretty ugly.
Not looking good. I kind of missed everything yesterday on a very busy day, and you texted last night and said, it's not looking good, and I pulled up the forecast, and I went, oh, yeah, indeed, because I have a Tampa trip coming up here in about a month for the annual...
Not anymore.
Well, I mean, fingers crossed, man. Like, if I learned anything from Helene, it was, I had both bathtubs full of water here expecting what the other side of Georgia got, and they missed it by an entire state, right? The worst part. So when they put this forecast over Tampa, I don't really have as much confidence in the forecast. Also, I just see, man, I don't know what's going on with my social media soapboxes, but it is very clear to me that the online meteorologists are overhyping this stuff to get as many views as possible versus maybe taking an objective look at these forecasts. They're like, oh, worst case scenario. I'm like, I really hope that's not the case. Everybody should absolutely prepare. But I definitely see the overhyping of these hurricanes now for social media views.
Yeah, I think the only thing I'd say about this path is, and it's, I mean, to your point, it could end up somewhere other than Tampa, but I think the storm surge that's going to hit the west coast of Florida is going to be.
Yeah, it didn't look pretty.
Like I don't recall any hurricane in our lifetime that's done what this hurricane path has done, which is, it deep into the Gulf, almost to Cancun, and then sort of coming back the other way. And so it'll, gain a lot of strength before it hits the coast. And the storm surge for Helene was bad in the Tampa area, and that was a hurricane that was well off the coast. So this one does worry me for people that are there, and I hope everybody's getting out of the path of it.
As we said last time, get away. Don't stay.
Yeah, there's no upside in staying. No. All right, so great transition to talking about our happier things and to talk about a question from our Slack community. We got a bunch of new members there. If you want to join the Slack community, we have weekly happy hours as long as Ed's schedule dictates and he's not slumped over at his desk falling asleep. We also have a couple meetups that we're working on for the fall, and then in 2025, just a couple bucks a month to join us and spend some time talking with travel experts like Richard Kerr. And we have a question from the Slack community. And it's an interesting one because, we don't talk a lot about Accor on this program. You and I both know Accor. They actually contain one of my favorite hotel chains. But Jill had a question, and her question was, anyone have any thoughts on converting Flying Blue points to Accor points? She says she hasn't used Accor. I know it's popular with Europe. The Amex Chase all converting Flying Blue, sometimes with transfer bonuses. I wonder if this could be useful. So, Mr. Kerr, I guess first, just, you want to walk folks through what sort of brands are associated with Accor so they know what we're talking about?
Yeah, if you haven't taken a look at Accor or you never stayed at the properties, well worth it. Most notable here in North America are the Fairmont brands, which is that your favorite?
One of my favorites.
That's one of your favorites.
Yeah.
You left everybody hanging. You're like, contains one of my favorite hotel brands. So Julie has a question. Like, wait a minute, what? Yeah, Fairmont's lovely, but really a massive worldwide chain outside of North America, although they continue to try and make inroads here. So Raffles is a great one. Sofitel, they have these value brands in Europe that pretty much anywhere you need to go is going to be one, like the Ibis that are by airports and perfectly lovely.
Ibis and Novotel. And yeah.
Novatel's nice. There's, Novatel's down in South Beach, actually, in Miami. Let me pull up their brand list because take a look at, I think, how many are they up to? 30 brands? It's 30. Sorry. How many? All right, you don't know the answer. How many brands do you think Accor has right now?
How many brands do I think they have? And you gave me a little bit of hint when you said 30. I'm going to say 35.
55. 55. Who can name all 55 brands of Accor?
I'm not sure I can get past 5, to be honest. I mean, like, there's so many of them I get, like that I know are part of the program, but I can never name them all.
I get so some of these are. I've stayed at a couple of these, like in the Middle East. Move and Pick are awesome hotels. Banyan Tree are luxury hotels. Some of these I've never even One Fine Stay.
5,500 hotels apparently across the brand, which is a pretty decent sized brand.
Yeah, Pullman and some of these are so nice. You aren't exposed to.
Yeah,
you aren't exposed to them here in North America. So program works a little bit different than everybody else. It is a revenues-based program, but 1 point is worth 2 euro cents. So 2 cents per point flat. You can use a mix of cash and points. If a room's available, you can use points for that. No blackout dates. So it's kind of like Southwest, right? If there's a seat, if there's a room, you can use your points, but instead of, points worth 2 cents each, pretty valuable points. So you can transfer Flying Blue to Accor at 4-to-1 ratio, which basically makes all your Flying Blue miles worth a flat 0.5 cents each. That's a little too low for me for Flying Blue miles, unless there was some specific reason that I needed to save money on an Accor hotel or was going to treat myself. You can transfer Accor from Capital One, albeit at a 2-to-1 ratio. But again, it makes your Capital One points worth a flat 1 cent each towards Accor, at which point you should just swipe your Capital One card and use it as an erase, kind of deal there. The All program that Accor has a lot of tangential partnerships that are very interesting, again, for like European and Middle Eastern and Asian. Huge partnerships with F1, PSG, football team in Paris. They do all kinds of cool stuff. Like there's some experiences and things that on there are interesting. Long answer short, I don't think at a 4-to-1 ratio, flying blue to Accor is useful, but I think if there's a way that you can accumulate Accor points or just stay at some of these hotels, either with, virtuoso benefits or they have their own program that some travel agents can book for you. Like these are very nice hotels that are really cool if you're traveling internationally to check out, or if you have the opportunity to stay at a Fairmont. Fairmont Lake Louise is still like number one on Mrs. Kerr's list that I have to get her up to. It was worth checking out the brands.
Yeah, and the Fairmont properties, I mean, gosh, they're just super awesome. I stayed at a number of them. A lot of the old Canadian Fairmonts were all part of the, and I might get this wrong, but the Canadian Rail Network. I think it was Canadian Railways, and so the hotels were built along the train line. So you've got Calgary and Toronto. The one in Halifax actually isn't a Fairmont anymore. It's a Westin. But Fairmont Banff, one of my favorite properties in the entire world. I mean, just a beautiful, beautiful hotel. And Fairmont used to have its own program. It got folded into Accor. I mean, gosh, it was pre-COVID.
Yeah. It's a while ago.
It's been a while. But I mean, from a Freddie Award standpoint, the Accor brands win awards almost every year in Europe for across the board in terms of hotel popularity. So it's a brand that's well recognized in Europe for value. And to your point, no pun intended, your points can go a long way. It's just tough for us to be able to bulk up on Accor points here in the U.S. So,
yep, what you give up for the potential outsized value, you don't have to play award availability games. And to people not like you and me, they're typically more than happy to do that.
Yeah, no, and I think you bring up a good point. I mean, I think most of the folks that I talk to that I can't get involved in the game, it's because they don't want to spend the time. So I mean, it's a good point, and maybe it's you and I that are wrong, but I don't think it is. I still think there's value out there, but I think again at the end of the day, I when we talk about value, because we're going to talk about Hyatt next in category 1 to 4, I think Accor represents an incredible amount of value for European vacations, and that's for me, like the bottom line here is that it is a chain you should be paying attention to. The Fairmont properties, I don't think it's a great value redeeming points for them in the U.S., mostly because a lot of those properties get pretty pricey, but definitely some great options for overseas.
And don't forget about the Orient Express. 3 hotels, 2 luxury trains, and 1 luxury ship coming to the Orient Express brand. Heard of their trains, did not know they had hotels and a ship sailing in 2026. And I'll be honest, it looks right up my alley, man. So more research to be done there.
Didn't know you could save up points to hop on a train.
Now you do.
I'm all for it.
All thanks to the Miles to Go podcast.
Boom, boom, boom. All right, let's talk through this list from Ben over at 1 Mile at a Time. This is a list of category 1 to 4 Hyatt hotels. And why are we talking about category 1 to 4? Well, Richard, as you well know, but for folks who don't know listening, category 1 to 4 certificates are pretty popular in the world of Hyatt. You get these when you hold their credit cards, and then there are certain situations where you can earn these from the brand. And so it's really important to know what properties are in category 4 for the most part, though we are going to talk about a couple of international properties that aren't in category 4 that are lower. But this is, I think when you and I were talking about this in pre-show, you made a couple of comments about, oh, wow, interesting. I didn't realize that property was still a category 1 to 4. I'm not going to say that this is like a wow moment and like this is incredible and there's lots of value, but I think there's still a number of decent properties in the category 1 to 4 range. And I'm going to cover a couple of domestic ones, and then I think maybe you could hit on a couple of the international ones you were talking about. But the Andaz in Savannah as a category 4, the Thompson in Washington, D.C., where we recently stayed for some medical appointments that my son had. That's another good one, especially when you consider what hotel rates in D.C. can be. Hyatt-centric downtown Denver is a solid property. And then you mentioned Hyatt Regency Grand Cypress, which is a fave of us Disney nerds, located right beside Disney World. Has a really awesome pool complex. Used to have an awesome lounge. May it rest in peace.
Rest in peace.
But a solid choice for folks who want to come down to Disney and redeem points to do so, including getting to meet Merlot, the hotel bird. So definitely some solid choices there in the U.S. And there were a couple that you noted outside the U.S. that I think are also pretty awesome.
Yeah, Grand Hyatt Istanbul, lovely property. I've heard good things about the Hyatt-centric Venice. although it's a little bit outside the city, if I'm not mistaken.
It is actually. You should remember it because we helped my buddy Lauren, Disney Lauren, stay there during her honeymoon. Murano is one of the small islands that focuses on the artisanal glass blowing in Venice, and so it's not a main tourist spot, if you will. But I mean, personally, I think it's a fine place to stay. It's an easy boat ride to anything. But yes, you would be taking a boat ride to pretty much any tourist attraction or anything you want to explore because it's a fairly small island.
Yeah. Both Australian properties I've stayed at and are lovely. Grand Hyatt Melbourne and then Hyatt Regency Sydney, near and dear to my heart. Ed, do you know what is special about the Hyatt Regency Sydney to me?
I don't know what's special to you about you, but I have some special memories there too.
I signed the deal to sell the Award Travel 101 community in the lounge at the Hyatt Regency Sydney, which allowed me to get out of the Navy and do points and miles for a living. So shout out to the Hyatt Regency Sydney for a lifelong memory to me.
And a very nice lounge. That was my memory. My kids loved it because by the second day we were there, everybody in the lounge knew their names, knew what drinks they wanted. They had all their breakfast stuff ready. It was they took excellent care of us. As much as I love how beautiful the Park Hyatt Sydney is, I felt like for families, the Hyatt Regency Sydney was actually a better fit for us.
Yeah, a lot of good sense there. 5 Park Hyatts. Park Hyatt Mendoza, which I've stayed at and is fantastic in Buenos Aires. 4 Park Hyatts in Asia, Jakarta, Siem Reap, and forgive me on the pronunciation of these, Changsha and Suzhou.
I'm glad that's you, not me, yeah.
Suzhou, Suchou, which Ben's got a picture of, and it looks amazing. I hadn't heard of that one before, actually. I just logged into my account. I have 3 Category 1 to 4 certificates sitting in my account right now. No idea how I got them. Probably card holder spin since I put all my business Hyatt stays on the World of Hyatt card. Mm-hmm. So I'm stacked out, man. I need to take advantage of some of these. And at Savannah, I have stayed at twice to visit our buddy Howie, who lives not but a far walk from that property. And it is also a lovely, lovely Hyatt to stay at. And if you can use a certificate, great, because that place goes many hundreds of dollars a night.
Yeah. 2 more that I have experience with. Hyatt Regency Lisbon, great property. Not located right in downtown Lisbon. We talked about it when I stayed there last year. Property's beautiful, rooms are beautiful, but a little bit out of the way. Still, I think can be a great value just, given how much hotels in Europe can be at certain times of year. And then just to join Kerr in the painful pronunciation game, Hyatt Regency Hong Kong, Sim Sha Sui, I think.
Choi. Sim Sha Choi. I learned that the hard way when I stayed there.
So this
I
property,
hope that's wrong, so everybody can write in and be like, no, he's still wrong.
I did actually get a bunch of people writing in saying I actually pronounced Papiete right when we had the conversation, but I'll leave that alone. But yeah, I stayed at this property and the Grand Hyatt over the times that I've been in Hong Kong, and this one's a little bit more in the city center, where Grand Hyatt's a little bit sort of like across the water kind of thing. But a really beautiful property. Some great suites there, great elite benefits. So another property that I would be happy to use a Category 1 to 4 certificate at.
It's a cool spot. We had an amazing view looking back towards the ferry terminal and the river and the other side of Hong Kong. It's in a huge tall tower. That property, also an amazing lounge at that property when we stayed. Man, I got to get back to Asia. Been too long. I really miss it. Now, I was going to tell my elevator story from last night, but I'll let you.
All right, I'll close us out on this. I would say love to hear from folks who have other favorites that are Category 1 to 4s. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I think like, oh my God, the value here is better than ever. There are definitely some favorites that have aged out of the Category 1 to 4 with Hyatt, but still some really great values here. So nothing to be ashamed of in terms of being able to find great value to use your Category 1 for a certificate. Love to hear from folks listening to the show if they have other favorites that they'd add to the list. Mr. Kerr, help us rise up in this moment with your elevator story.
I've way overhyped this, but the first time I've used choice points in about literally 8 years. Last night in Dahlonega, Georgia. I had to go to a wedding. Actually, for a long-time Points and Miles friend, and there was a solid crew of Points and Miles people there, which meant that the only spot in town, the Holiday Inn Express, that you could use points in Dahlonega, Georgia, the gold capital of Georgia, site of a gold rush, and still live on in that history. You can still go gold mining today, actually, in the little kitschy touristy trap things up there in the Georgia mountains. Then. Holiday Inn Express rooms were gone super quick, which left me with the Comfort Inn and Suites Dahlonega, Georgia.
Oh, Comfort Inn and Suites.
Yes, which was going for 30,000 choice points for the night because everything in Dahlonega this weekend was like over $300. And over $300 for Comfort Inn and Suites is just a lot of money.
Yeah.
Ended up having to drive home and not even stay there, but because of Atlanta traffic, and I got to go all the way through, and it's a Saturday in football season, you never know what you're going to hit, which luckily I did. As going to and from the wedding yesterday, I just hit atrocious traffic, including a shutdown Georgia 400 to all my Atlanta nerds, so that was awesome. So I was like, I tried to actually cancel and change the room, but Choice has these really weird policies with their award nights, right, where based on your status is how far out you can book an award night.
Yeah.
I could not change or cancel this once I decided only a couple days ago that, hey, I can't stay the night because of a litany of reasons. So I thought, oh, well, I have this room, so I'm just going to go up early, check out a few things in Atlanta on the way, and then when I get there, at least I have a spot to change into my Sunday church clothes for the wedding and, take a shower after. So I checked into the hotel. Their computers were down, so they did like this little manual.
Really?
Yeah. Unfortunately, for the Comfort Inn and Suites brand, everything kind of went to my expectations. However, it's super convenient there in town to have a spot to catch a shower, turn on the Georgia-Auburn game for a little bit, just checked out the hotel and Choice Points and, whatever. Was there for an hour and a half. Got a cup of coffee and then headed off to the wedding. So shout out there for Choice Points. That was great versus like otherwise I would have had to try and time the Atlanta traffic to get there in time, which meant I would already had to be like in a jacket and a button up the whole time while driving, and then you get there and you're kind of gross. So Choice Points and hotel points to rescue you if you're not staying the night, and then actually slipped the key card into one of the groomsmen's pockets and said, hey, if anybody needs a room tonight because of overindulgence or anything else, here you go, 202 at the Comfort Inn and Suites down the road. And he was like, this is awesome. And I was like, yeah, it might come in handy. So I actually need to text a few people this morning and be like, anybody stay in that room? That come in handy for anybody who got in trouble?
Yeah, well, when the charge pops up on your credit card for the damage to the hotel room.
No, the computers were down, so I did not have to put a card on file. So I was aware of that before I handed the key over. There is no card on file for me.
So just a judgment floating around for Mr. Kerr waiting to catch up with them. All right, so I'm gonna set an over under here and see how well how good your memory is, and then we'll talk Waffle House to close us out. I'm gonna set the over under at 2018. When did you acquire those Choice Points?
Oh man, when they were Radisson points from the U.S. Bank Radisson card.
I figured, yeah.
Which means I had that when I was in Japan, so sometime between 2013 and 16.
Okay, all right, yeah.
So
I probably would have taken
10
the over.
years old.
The choice.
Yeah. Oh, and the elevator story was, so it's only a 3-story hotel, but dude, it's been so long since I've gotten in. Everybody knows this elevator. You've been in it 100 times. Really old hotels. It has the 3 buttons side by side that are the white raised buttons. You push it and it makes that honking noise that everybody, you all know this old school elevator honking noise. And it's been years since I've been in a honking noise elevator. And as soon as I heard that, I was like, I don't think Thomas and Mary have ever heard this before, man. But that was every elevator growing up. And as soon as I walked in the Comfort Inn and Suites, I was like, everything about this is meeting my expectations. So that was awesome.
Exceeding your expectations. Yeah. And me saving Jeremiah time, putting in the audio effects.
I'm sure, yeah. But yeah, man, I've had those Choice Points at least for 10 years on my account, and it's great to finally redeem some of those for a place for an hour and a half to catch a shower and get dressed for a wedding.
Nice. All right, so real quick to close, as is with many things that are a part of the fabric of America, I am sometimes the last to know about these things. So credit to producer Jeremiah who first opened my eyes to this. But sounds like you and I might have a little bit of a charity event to schedule here, and there's some debate about where to do this because Jeremiah has offered to live stream, but he only offered to live stream if we came to Akron, which does have commercial service, and so maybe we could get a new dot on our map. But I know you'd probably want to do this challenge at your own personal private Waffle House where you could stack the deck to your advantage. Mm-hmm. But the Waffle House challenge, as I've been informed, Mr. Kerr, is 24 hours in a Waffle House, but you get to subtract an hour of Waffle House time for each waffle that you can consume. And so I'm thinking we should do this for charity. Full disclosure, I know I'm going to get my ass kicked in this challenge, but I think we could have some fun with it.
I think you're just going to be there for 6 more hours than I am.
I might take the over.
Yeah, it's become a popular fantasy football thing. Maybe a little overplayed, although interesting nonetheless. The only downside is Waffle Houses don't have Wi-Fi because the entire purpose of the Waffle House is to turn tables as quick as possible. So the last thing they want is people like me coming with their laptop and sitting in what few tables they have. So no Wi-Fi at Waffle House. So you got to pick one that you can hotspot off of with pretty good service if you're going to do 24 hours in a Waffle House. But Yeah, especially since you've never been to Waffle House, man. It's just everybody that works there. Fantastic chit chat. I always have a great experience. It's just a Southern comfort thing, and we should do something cool there.
Yeah, I agree. And I love breakfast food and I love junk food. So waffle sounds right up my alley.
I applied for Waffle House corporate coming out of undergrad when I
then.
Yeah, applied for a job at Waffle House corporate, and this is the true story. I'm going to find it and show it to everybody. When you apply, you get a wristband that says 10% off to Waffle House, like a stretchy plastic wristband. And it has continued to serve me now, we're almost 20 years, 18 years later. I show them a 10% off Waffle House wristband, and it is no way, shape, and form like this. I could have absolutely just made this myself. And every single time the servers go, okay, and they take 10% off. And I'm like, this is awesome. This thing continues to work. For my time applying for a job at corporate Waffle House.
Ladies and gentlemen, you get all of the facts here on the Miles to Go podcast, including Mr. Kerr's almost foray into Waffle House corporate.
Man. Could have been a waffle millionaire, man. Could have been.
All right, well, I think it's time to get on out of here. By the time this episode goes live, I will have had a number of airline flights, and I think that it's possible that by the time this episode goes live, you and I will have recorded in person in a secret location, not known by many, but associated with one of our favorite hotel brands. So more to come on that.
Looking forward to it. Should be a good week.
Yep, and then I've got meetups coming up. I got a meetup coming up with some of the Minneapolis members of the Slack community. More details on that if you want to click on the link in the show notes and join us. There'll be a Minneapolis meetup, and there might even be a Las Vegas meetup coming up in a few weeks as well, Mr. Kerr. So hopefully we'll see you at one of those. I know I'll definitely see you at that destination to be named later. But until we upload again, we've got miles to go. Say,